to pursue my MBA, so Master's of Business Administration from the Ross School of Business here. So anything on the slide I can talk to you further if there's any questions, but otherwise I'm going to hand it over to Sydney here so she can introduce herself.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. A tough act to follow, but we'll give it a shot here. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Johnson. I graduated from Purdue last year, so May 2019, with my degree in industrial engineering. I'm from California, but upon graduation, moved out to Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm out in the South right now. Not sure how I feel about it quite yet. I think I will say I miss a little bit of the Midwest. Enjoy it while you're there. You probably won't hear that from many people. But while I was on campus, I was involved in a couple of different organizations. Of course, like they just mentioned, the Purdue Engineering Student Council. I was also a member of fraternity and sorority life. I was a Kappa Kappa Gamma member. I worked in the admissions office, and then my professional experience, I interned with UPS in 2 different capacities. I was a customer solutions intern, which is our consulting branch. And then I was also an HR brand ambassador intern for a year as well. So a lot of different experiences. Jason's are more spread out, I guess, across different companies. I'm kind of spread out throughout one company. So we have the different insight from that, and would, of course, love to talk to you guys about that too. And then lastly, like Jason talked about, I'm also pretty involved in the community. So American Red Cross and Relay for Life are really close to my heart, in addition to fostering animals. So that's a little bit about me. We're super excited to be here with you guys, but I'll turn it back over to you, Jason.
Sure. So let me just set up the structure of kind of how we want to do this. So we really only have one slide here. We just want to walk through a couple key topics for how you guys can crush this career fair, especially today in kind of a COVID-inspired world or a COVID-affected world with potentially some virtual aspects. So what we're going to do is kind of approach this from 2 perspectives. So I'll take the more kind of student perspective of how you're preparing and that type of thing, and Sydney will kind of play the recruiter, as she has had some professional experience doing. So we'll kind of walk through a couple main topics and kind of go back and forth here. It's kind of a conversation. Like they said at the beginning, or like Meredith said at the beginning, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end as we go through. So first of all, we wanted to start with kind of how to prepare for the fair itself. So we've called this topic kind of self-reflection and preparation for IR. So a couple quick things that have helped me in the past. You know, taking a little bit of time before the fair to reflect on what you want and knowing what you don't want. It's as much about the companies interviewing you as it is about you interviewing the company. So it's really helpful to know kind of what you're looking for in a role. You know, plan out your day. It's going to look different probably in the virtual world. I think we'll talk to you a little bit later, but you know, scheduling appointments with companies, thinking about where you want to devote your time. It might not be as easy as it was in the past to just walk up to as many tables as possible and have a short conversation. You might have to be a little bit more deliberate about how you're communicating with companies. So definitely take the time to do that. And then just lastly, doing a little bit of research on every company. It goes a long way, right? 5 minutes of research, quick Google search, see if there's any news articles that have come out recently that you can use as an icebreaker for talking to the representative. Once again, different in a virtual environment, but still helps to kind of make it a little bit more casual, because Zoom can be a little bit cold sometimes. Sydney, you want to look at it from the recruiter side?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things that we want to hit on from the recruiter side. And keep in mind, the recruiters are going to be meeting a lot of different people. So you'll hear a couple of, I guess, threads throughout the tips that Jason and I give you. And one that you're going to hear from me a lot is intention. So sometimes it's hard to set yourself apart really quickly. And so with that, I prompt you with a couple of questions. So who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it? I'm not sure if you guys have seen The Power of Why or Start with Why by Simon Sinek, but really it's critical. So anyone can say, I'm a member of this or I do this, but what's going to really stick with those recruiters is why. You know, why are you a part of that organization, or why did you choose this? Just different things like that. Past that, recruiters and companies, of course, look for different characteristics in whatever jobs they're looking for. So Jason's company might look for different things than my company is looking for. And then throughout my company, we might be looking for different things for different roles. So it ties in a little bit to that preparation part that Jason mentioned. And then a very critical part of it, of course, is practicing your pitch. So I'm sure you'll get a ton of tips on that from the CCO, who I believe is presenting later in the evening. But definitely practice your pitch, your name, grade, major, and then once again, just really hit on what you're involved in, your previous experience, and then why you. What makes you the right person for that job? Back to you, Jason. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yep. Okay, so next we have what we're calling kind of being your own advocate, right? So when you are recruiting with a recruiter or talking to any company for any opportunity, you know, you're kind of your own salesperson, right? I mean, you're the person who knows your own experience the best. You know what you bring to the table, and you know basically what the answer to the question, why should you hire me, is. So some of the things we'd like to call out is, you know, grades are important, and some companies are going to have a threshold, not all, for where they'd like your GPA to be. But thinking a little bit past grades, you know, what else do you bring? What sort of intangibles do you bring? What sort of qualities when you're working in teams, in class, or when you're talking about your extracurricular activities? What sort of those other qualities do you have that you can bring to the table? And even better if those kind of fit in the culture of the company that you're talking to. So if you know anything about their working culture, or you can do any research, you know, thinking about how you would kind of fit in that company, past just technical skills, you know. What differentiates you from other people is going to be, like Sydney said, the key to when they're talking and see a lot of different faces flashing across the screen all day, how you kind of stand out to them. Sydney?
Yep. So on top of that, from the recruiter perspective, a couple of tips. So you're going to want to be authentic, passionate, and I'll say it again, intentional. And that ties into the second bullet point here of focusing on 2 meaningful experiences in depth. So a common pitfall that students fall into, especially if you're an underclassman, is you're trying to prove your worth and people just start rattling off laundry lists of different things. So they'll mention a club that they maybe attended in high school and then 10 different things, and they're not really passionate about any of them. So you're going to want to take 1, 2, maybe 3 experiences that you're really, really passionate about and really hone in and talk about those. So my favorite quote is, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So take that with you as you're approaching these recruiters. And then lastly, it ties into what Jason said, of course. What do you want to be remembered for? And I think that ties into a lot of what we'll talk about.
Awesome. Sydney, you always have the best quotes. Okay, this next section, sorry about the numbering there. It should be section 3, that's my bad. The next section is really focused around the virtual engagement. So kind of maybe a little special this year, just given the way that things are evolving. But honestly, it's good to get practice with this stuff now. It's affecting basically every part of the real world. You know, Sydney can speak to, but in my professional experience, I just did a project a couple months ago, and I never met the people that I was on the project with. We just did only Zoom calls. We worked at a facility, and no one on the project team had ever even been to the site that we were working at. So it worked for career recruiting, and I know our generation is a little bit more tech savvy, but these types of things are hard to do sometimes. Especially since it's a little bit unnatural. So couple quick things, you know, looking at the camera, not yourself. If you have dual monitors, it can be helpful to have like what you're presenting or what you're looking at on the screen where your webcam is. If you have a laptop, usually you're looking anyways, but that's one kind of tip. Smile, you know, it goes a long way. Clean professional appearance and background. Sydney and I have our nice Purdue virtual backgrounds here. You know, no one really wants to see my apartment. So if you want to do a Zoom background, feel free to do that. Good body language. You know, you can tell even on video, people whose personalities are coming through, even if you can't really see the hands, your hands, or you can't really engage personally with someone. And then, making sure that that your tech is working. Things are going to happen. If you do have a tech issue, I would never think that a recruiter, and Cindy, you can speak to this, would hold it against you. We expect that things are going to happen, but just being ready and making sure it's something that you can, if you can avoid it, that you've kind of taken the precautionary measures to do so. Today Sydney and I logged on 10 minutes early, just make sure that we can share the screen, make sure everyone can see us, make sure we can look at the chat for the questions. Just being prepared is really good, especially in this. Sydney?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So you can try to prepare all you want, but you're inevitably gonna hit a technology point that something goes wrong. So don't let it fluster you. It's probably gonna happen to the recruiters too. Just the other day at Penn State, the system wouldn't let any recruiters have a video, so everyone was basically instant messaging to connect, and things like that happen. So it's how you deal with it, which is typically a skill that recruiters and employers look for, is adaptability. So kind of roll with it. We're all learning it at the same time. And then from the recruiter perspective on this side, so remember that they're people too. They're going to be meeting a lot of people, and instead of them constantly pulling information out of you, or you going and going and going and they can't get a word in, remember that it's a conversation. And sometimes that can be a little bit trickier through a screen. There might be some uncomfortable pauses, or you might accidentally interrupt each other. That's totally okay. Once again, don't let that fluster you. It's going to happen. And then in terms of making appointments, I think there was a question in there, so I'm sure we'll tackle that at the end. But make appointments with companies you're interested in. I think the appointments for you guys open tomorrow. So definitely do that, and do it early so they can fill up, just like you've seen the lines at IR and at Expo. It can get really crazy really quickly. So definitely do that. And then the last tip on that, ask for what you want. So when you get to the end of these discussions with career fair representatives, let them know what you're interested in. Be very clear. I think where people, they get 90% of the way and then they don't ask for it. They don't just say, hey, what's the next steps? Or I'm interested in this job. How can I go to the next step? Or, what should I do? How can I improve? So really ask for what you want. It might feel weird at first, but I promise you it's the closing part of that deal almost. So the last thing I wanted to just double back on. So for the smiling, whether you're on video or not, that might seem weird, but I'm telling you, it's the best tip I can give you. You don't maybe realize it, but even if your screen is off, you can tell that I'm talking with my mouth like I'm smiling versus I'm talking like this and I'm not. So just the tip I wanted to leave on that one. Oh, and now I ruined my video. See, technology things, they happen. But yeah, Jason, back to you.
It's a good demonstration. Thank you. Backup plan. Once again, this is a little bit easier in the physical world where you maybe are talking to people all day and things aren't going well. You're coming prepared, but you can stop by at a couple other companies. But the basic idea still remains the same, and you can make appointments with other recruiters, but kind of know what you're going to do if things don't work out, right? I mean, at the very least, you should be kind of extending, or I guess addressing all your potential options. So talking to as many companies as you can. They're only going to say no, and at the very least, or at the very worst, they'll probably give you something that you can improve on for next time, and you can kind of keep a note of that. Some other things, smaller companies are also great. There's a lot of big companies that are awesome to work for. Sometimes smaller companies are also looking for people that don't get as much name recognition. So if you're trying to just get some experience, then sometimes those companies are good to evaluate as well. And then finally, if worst comes to worst, you really aren't finding anything for the summer. We know the economy isn't very good. The job market might be suffering, and there could be some hiring freezes right now. Just thinking about how else you could maximize your summer, so that next year, next fall, if things didn't work out, you have something to point to say, hey, even though I didn't get an internship last summer, I was still able to do something productive, something that was working towards my end goal. Maybe it's learning a new technical skill, or doing a volunteer project for a local organization, or something like that. Something to kind of utilize your time that you can ideally say, hey, I still made some progress towards the next time. Sydney?
Yeah, great tip. All right, and then our last section from this recruiter perspective. So you're going to want to keep in contact. Timelines and just processes in general this year are going to be different. And we'll double back on the ask for what you want. I saw that pop up in the chat too, because it kind of ties into this. But be clear, if you're interested in this role, just because it's taking a little longer, or maybe you weren't selected, and that's okay too. But keep in contact. I know sometimes you can feel as a student like they're overwhelming recruiters, or, oh, they have jobs and they're busy. But really, I promise, we like hearing your updates. If you took part in a really cool project for EPICS, shoot us an email. It's really quick. Just let us know. You're going to be updating your resume anyways. Just let us know. Basically, it keeps you on our radar. And that kind of ties into the LinkedIn too. Connect on LinkedIn and stay on our radars. So another last little piece is, how can I better prepare for next year? Another thing that companies really, really look for in students is not only that adaptability, but that constant drive for improvement and seeking feedback. I can't tell you how valuable that is if you seek and really apply feedback. So it's one of my favorite questions, and I love seeing that when I get that from students, of how can I better prepare for next year? What tips do you have for me going forward? Things like that. So that's basically all of our information that we are going to rattle off to you. It looks like we have a ton of questions in the chat. Meredith or Addie, if you guys want to kind of moderate those and we can go through them.
Yes, I will take that. I've got a list of the questions. It looks like we have a ton, so we can get right into it. The first question is from Bailey, and she asks, if there's a company we're interested in but does not come to IR, what's the best path to get in contact?
Sydney, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So I would say the best path to get in contact, there's a couple of different ways. One, research the opportunities that are available. Don't just, reach out if you get a contact and say, I want to work at UPS or whatever it is, because a lot of these companies, even if they're really small or even if they're really big, there's going to be a lot of different things. So be intentional, be strategic about it, figure out what's open. And then what I would do next is really go on LinkedIn. Look for someone with the title of, maybe program manager or talent management or human resources or talent acquisition. Those are typically some buzzwords. And if you reach out to them, a lot of times you might not hear back, but a lot of times you might. And they can at least provide more information on how to go about those next steps or applying and getting in contact.
Yeah, the other resource might be the CCO might also have some contact information, or at least a place to reach out to. So if you know that maybe they've come in the past, but just this year they're not coming because of the current situation or so, they're not planning on hiring potentially, they also have some resources there, I believe. So could be another place to look.
Awesome. The next question is, if we want to do a 3-term co-op, should we approach IR any differently?
I guess from a application perspective, yes, you would need to know which companies are offering probably the co-op programs. From a preparation perspective, I don't think there's as much different, and someone can correct me on this, but I would still prepare the same way that you're applying for a position that you would like to be hired. I don't know. I personally didn't do co-op. I had friends that did, and they didn't go about it any other differently than just trying to get an internship, I believe. So if someone wants to add on to this, feel free.
Yeah, there's also the co-op fair, I believe. I'm not sure if that still happens every year, but definitely most of the people I know that did co-ops, they found them that way too. So
great. A popular question was, is it a good idea to include high school experiences when focusing on the meaningful experiences, or only mention college activities?
I feel like we'll both have some input on this one, Jason. So from my perspective, if it was really meaningful to you and a more unique experience or something that really, really impacted you, I would say yes, as long as it's connecting to something that you're doing. So say you were involved with, I'll use Relay for Life in high school, like I was. If you stopped there, even if it was meaningful, but you stopped there, maybe question a little more if it should be included. But if that now impacts the major you went into, or if you're in biomedical, or if you're now a part of the Relay for Life at Purdue, definitely still include it. It shows a consistency. It shows that you're dedicated to that. So that's my take. It kind of, I guess it depends would be my answer, but it would have to be really meaningful. And then if so, absolutely. Jason, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question because it varies based on, if you're a freshman, I would fully expect to see high school experiences on your resume. Or if you're a first year student, I would fully expect to see that. I mean, you might have had a job, in high school, but whether it's related to engineering or not, isn't as important as whether you're able to kind of communicate what you learned. So if you worked at a local restaurant or something, dealing with customer service, or being able to improve upon some process maybe that you pointed out something new, I would be happy to see that on a resume, even though it was a high school experience. You'll find that as you start to get a little bit further in college, maybe your sophomore year, maybe your freshman year experiences or any extracurricular should start to kind of replace those. I've graduated 5 or 6 years ago now, and I've noticed that even some of those really big college activities that I was involved in have pretty much fallen off my resume just from other experiences. So it's kind of a attrition thing. You put on what's most relevant, what you have most experience with, but as you evolve and grow older, you'll have even more relevant experiences to put on your resume. So I wouldn't be scared of putting something on from high school if I was a freshman or even a sophomore. But you should try to prove, I guess, that in college you've also adapted and are continuing to grow and have new experiences. So.
Awesome, thank you. We've had a couple questions about international students, so I'll pick one of them. For international students, how can we look like a strong applicant if we're not able to intern in the US? How can we get in contact via IR for a company, but for a US branch? So I think, how can international students look like strong applicants too?
Yeah, so just a couple of legal things. I don't know how much you guys know about this, or if the CCO presents on any of this, but employers shouldn't be asking you questions like that. Typically those will come on applications and things like that. And sometimes companies just can't, they don't provide that sponsorship. And it's nothing against you, but I say all of that because, it's like, how can international students still look like strong candidates? And it does not disqualify you, and it doesn't make you a less of an applicant. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of confusing, but really I would focus on what you bring to the table, focus on your experiences, focus on what you can bring to the company, how much research you've done on the role and different things like that. Because you shouldn't, when you're meeting a representative, whether it's in person or whether it's now, that shouldn't be something that's really discussed until, like I said, that application, when you fill it out through an HR representative. So
yeah.
Anything to add, Jason?
Yeah, just 2 quick adds. One, not only should a company not ask you, it's actually illegal for them to ask you if you require sponsorship. So if they are asking that, that's not good. And then the second one is, a lot of the big universities, I know Michigan has one here where I am, have like international student centers, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, and they're kind of consolidating the very ever-changing legal structure, especially during COVID right now, of whether international students are allowed to be on campus or allowed to work, and whether that covers their visa and things. So I would, things change every day in politics and stuff too. So anything we say could change next week, but I would keep up to date with those resources as well for the latest information.
Great. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So if we want to send a company updates, as you said, how would you go about formatting that email? How do you say that while still sounding professional?
I can.
Yeah.
I'll do go ahead, Sydney.
Oh no, take it away, Jason. That's all you.
Just a quick. Hey, here's what's been going on for me. It doesn't need to be the most professional email of all time, but just here's an update of a project I was working on and the results and things. It's a good way to keep in communication with them. So I can't give like exact wording and everything, but it should still be a professional email, but it doesn't need to be like a 10-page, a 10-page essay on your latest experiences.
Yeah, exactly. That was perfect. I mean, really a couple of sentences, one paragraph or something. It doesn't have to be big.
Awesome. Let's see. Next question is, grad student here with a few years of professional experience in a different industry, how should I approach IR differently?
Yeah, so I'll just address that as a as a current grad student, I guess. You know, tons of people do career switching after business school, and in grad school, you might also be the same way. If you are pivoting industries, finding transferable skills, like we mentioned, it's almost similar to what I talked about with high school. You find the things that you worked on previously, and you figure out how you can apply them to what you want to do. So if you're doing, if your work experience was in something completely different, find the commonalities and try to apply those. So to keep it simple.
Awesome. Let's see, the next question. I generally have a really hard time with the pitch. What tips do you have to keep it natural, concise, and relevant?
Sydney is the expert here.
I've heard many a pitch in my time. So it's definitely a very real thing. It can feel very structured sometimes. And that's why I say really keep it about what you're passionate about, tie in those experiences. But if you're coming up and once again to that laundry list of just rattling it off, you're not going to be excited about it. You're not going to have that, we call it like this glow. You can always see when students really care about something, there's literally a glow basically. So in terms of keeping it natural, think about it like a conversation. And I know we've said that, but think about it like a conversation and talk about a passion. So basically, if you start with something and maybe it catches their interest, maybe I'm, doing my pitch to Jason and we happen to have been involved in the same organization or something, he might stop me right there and be like, oh, what did you do? Or what was your role? Say we were both on PESC like we were. That might be a natural stop. And that doesn't mean that, after you have that, you have to stop and then go back to your pitch. Just be prepared for that and use it essentially more of a conversation starter, a little bit of a kind of a springboard, rather than I need to get through everything. And if you don't hear about this, then I'm missing out. So like I said, think of it more as a conversation.
Awesome. Well, I think we're at time. Thank you so much for answering all of those questions. I'm sorry to everybody whose questions we couldn't get to, but we appreciate both of your times. It was really interesting hearing your perspectives. Meredith, any last words or can we wrap it up?
Yes, so thank you, Sydney and Jason, so much for presenting. If you didn't get your questions answered, you can head over to the general questions link and ask there. And the next presentation is going to be from Rose from the CCO. So if you want to learn more about those resources, you can head on over to that link right now. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.